What is up, NFL fans? It is your boy, Kevin Phillip Fox, here with the Legit Football Podcast. And we are here today to do a recap of a hell of a divisional round. And yes, you all know, all the great listeners of this show, that I mean a hell of a divisional round. And you know, me personally, it was quite the ride for me. And we'll get into that. Trust me, we will get into that in grave detail. But in the meantime, I am not doing this podcast alone. My usual Friday partner, who wasn't here Friday, is now my Tuesday partner today, Mr. Adrian Ravito from Down Under. Adrian, how the hell are you?
No, I'm not as good as you. That's for sure. I mean, we can agree. And we actually, yeah, you're right. I wasn't here Friday. You really are. I mean, I feel like old Kev, dependable Kev. I feel like that could possibly be. You're dependable. You're always there.
I like it. I like it.
We didn't talk about this in the pre-show because we were sort of in quickly, but I feel like we need to discuss hair at the moment.
Oh,
You've
yeah.
got you look like you got a new do going on. I haven't cut mine.
New do. What do we think?
I like it. I'm digging it, man. It's got that kind of like I rolled out of bed and I just look good.
Oh,
that's what.
I like that. That's, you know,
Yeah.
It takes a long time to make it look like you just rolled out of bed.
100%.
In the meantime, we got Joe Crack in the chat, and he wants us to give a shout out to Caitlin Bolin. So shout out to Caitlin Bolin. We have so much to get to today, Adrian. It's like almost not even funny, but I think our hair is an important start.
I agree.
You have not caved and gotten the cut like you said you might.
Well, what I did was, if you can see, is the hairdresser took the razors to the sideburns to sort of make them a little more manageable.
Oh, you got to edge up.
But it has given. Do you guys use the term mullet, or is that an Australian?
Oh yeah, no. Mullets are big right now. I had one before this. I love them.
I'm not a fan. And in Australia, I don't know how it sits over in the US, but in Australia, like, it just doesn't have a good aura about it. If that's the best way I can put it.
It used to not. It was very in style back in I'll say the 80s and the 90s. And then from like the late 90s to like pretty much like a couple years ago, the mullet was very maligned. It was kind of like the
what's the politically correct way to say
I'm
it?
trying to be politically correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was the southern way to look.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And now it's become indoctrinated by more of a modern, again, for lack of a better term, I'll say it's stylish, it's flashy, it's a little bit of a DB haircut. Are we picking up the DB? Douche.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Douche-ary. It's a little bit of that haircut.
It's funny because you used the like of those two words that come together to form it. Douche should be probably the least, the one you don't want to use on air.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Yeah. I wasn't.
The D-bag has a different term. Anyway, we digress.
But it's still fresh, and me personally, I've never shied away from flashy looks. So I did rock the mullet for a while. I'm gonna rock it again real soon. As you all know, I officiated a wedding, so I had to look a little proper for that.
Love that.
Now we could talk about hair all day, but there is so much to get to, and we have a divisional round of football games to recap. And Adrian, let's take a sort of bigger picture view at the divisional round first and foremost. Oh, well, there was one other thing that we had to get to, and please feel free to put it up, but pretty massive news in the NFL broke today, or was it yesterday? The Bears have hired Ben Johnson as their head coach, and according to many, Ben Johnson was the crown jewel of this head coaching crop, and that is who got the gig of the Chicago Bears, and we know that he's going to now be the OC for Caleb Williams. It's an appealing gig. It's an appealing job for really anybody, but especially an offensive-minded, like an offensive savant, a play-calling guru who, as we mentioned, has the mad scientist mixing up test tubes and vials in the lab vibe. And I believe it might have been you who might have suggested that there could be some turmoil, might not be the right word, but some growing pains with the transition from OC to head coach, given his acumen.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I looked left because I had to look up who Dylan Raiola is. And
yeah, that's the Pat Mahomes guy. That's the guy. I think this is an insult. Yeah, that's the guy who pretends to be Pat Mahomes. Have you seen his whole shtick?
Looking at his photo right now, and yeah, I can see where he's going with that one. but I don't agree. I don't
Not
think
a
you look
fan.
that way.
I think he might have been talking to you. I'm just kidding.
Well, either way, I don't agree.
Either
No,
way, you're dead wrong, Joe.
yeah. So you know what? Like the whole Ben Johnson hiring, I sort of had some time to think about this one. I was just like, like Adam Gase, he led like one of the most dominant passing attacks, took the Broncos to the Super Bowl. Uh, Josh McDaniels took the Patriots to the Super Bowl a couple of times. Nate Hackett was a great offensive coordinator on paper. I kind of get the appeal, but I also don't like this pick because I just think about Trevor Lawrence kind of going from bad coach to bad coach, Urban Meyer being the worst of those, and then to Doug Peterson. It's sort of like Caleb Williams does seem special, does seem like he's got something there, and I just don't know about a guy who hasn't proved it yet because coordinators don't always make great head coaches, and that's not up for debate. They absolutely do sometimes. D'Amico Ryans is a good example, but I feel like you tell me if you agree with this. I feel like the people in the Lions locker room are so bought in, and that starts with Dan Campbell. I don't I don't necessarily see Ben Johnson being the person behind that. And so you want him to go into a locker room that's already kind of divided. There was media comments. You got a star who needs to prove himself still. Like I don't know. There's things that could go wrong, right? They could just bears it up.
Definitely. And right, it's the Bears, so that kind of takes away a little bit of that benefit of the doubt that you might give because they haven't really earned that
Correct.
whatsoever over the years with their decision making, with their organizational ineptitude, for lack of a better term. Let's just call it what it is. So I personally I'm not underwhelmed by the hiring because I think it's a good call, and I'll say the vibes that I get, and this would have meant something differently a couple of years ago, but we're kind of seeing how it unfolds. I think I'm getting Mike McDaniel vibes from this hiring.
Okay.
And at the time, right, and over the years, that has looked like this excellent, initially it looked like this excellent hiring with this beautiful union of creativity and pieces and yada yada. But with time and lacking results and lacking buy-in and lacking, let's again call it what it is. It seems as though that team is not well coached.
Yeah.
So, they're not disciplined. So we'll see if Ben Johnson can be different. I'm optimistic he'll be different because of how bought in the players were in Detroit. And I know you said it has a lot to do with Campbell, and you're probably right, but maybe osmosis, maybe he picked up on some of the motivating, maybe he picked up on some of the ways to run the organization. I know, for example, Sean McDermott talks all the time about how his time being the DC underneath both Andy Reid and Ron Rivera was very influential to him learning how to be a winner because he was around winners. So, it's very it's very osmosisy. It's very like I had mentors in the past, like when I did theater, who said like be a vampire, and when you're around somebody who you respect and look up to, try to take in as much of their energy and learn as much from them as
Love that.
possible. And hopefully Ben Johnson was doing that. Hopefully Ben Johnson was a football vampire, football knowledge vampire, a motivating vampire, because he's going to need to be now. And he's inheriting kind of a mess. I would put Caleb Williams on my hardest to watch list, my top 5 hardest to watch list. I had a you make my eyes bleed list in 2024, and CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams and Russell Wilson, those are the headliners.
Was Rogers? No, enough Rogers. I
At
remember Kirk
times,
Cousins was on that list for
Cousins,
sure.
oh god, him getting out of that, him losing that gig to Penix was pretty, with what they paid him and everything, and probably the dead cap that they'll absorb. Man, what a bust. What could have been Kirk
Yeah, so
Cousins.
I agreed, and just going back to Johnson, like I agree with you that it's probably going to be a good fit. I think where my
You're a little jaded. You're a little,
no, oh for
maybe
sure.
it's same division, like the rivals, but also like you probably like me with the McDaniel, or like with any of the time that the Jets or the Pats post Belichick, anytime they get really super hyped, I'm just like, let's see it.
Yeah, and you know what?
Show me.
Actually, there's a really good. There's probably a good like what's the word? It's probably a good like you can understand where I'm coming from here because Drake May, for example, is an exciting quarterback, and you want the next coach. Vrabel was a great pick. You want someone that's got pulse on the wall that can bring these guys forward, and they're going to go in the right direction. And genuinely, and I mean this from my heart, like I like
Pelts
good
on the
football.
wall. That's an expression for they've accomplished some things.
They've got the dead animals on the wall
I
that
love that.
they've killed. Yeah,
It's an expression for like they've achieved something.
correct. Yeah,
Way to go.
and
Way to go,
whether it's a
Adrian.
Super Bowl or not, like
I like that. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, it's a goodie, isn't it? And like the thing is, I like good football. I want Kelly Williams to do well. I don't want him to beat the Packers, of course not. But like I
Right.
like good football, and so I don't want to see what has been to be a generational talent ruined by bad coach, bad coach, bad coach.
Like
So
Trevor
that's
Lawrence.
all. Correct. And
I
and
totally
and
understand.
yeah, and I'm concerned that that could happen, and there's no tape on Ben Johnson as a head coach to say otherwise, and that's what worries me.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm locked in, man. We're lockstep. I think I'm a little more optimistic than you are, and I think I'm a little less jaded because I don't the proximity for me as a fan to Chicago, apart from just covering the NFL, I don't really have that much extra exposure to them. The Bills play them once every 4 years, so I don't, I don't have the experience that you have with them of the all the fake hype. And this year the fake hype was
Oh,
ludicrous. Every
totally.
single offseason, darling, like when we were making our picks, everybody wanted to pick Chicago. We had to say you can't because they've done too much. They've won the offseason too well that it doesn't really mean anything for us to, but then it kind of turned out to would have been a stinker pick anyway. So we
Could
protected
be a
those
frisky
people.
pick for next year.
We protected those people from themselves. If only somebody had done that with you in Arizona or
There he is.
or or
I
Chris
can
in
only
Tennessee
if
or Demon in the Raiders or me
if
in the
Jaden Daniels if
oh
Jaden
wait,
Daniels wins the Super Bowl,
or
oh
me
my
in the
god.
oh, wait a minute. I was dead right. Oh, okay. Hold on.
You
Anyways, we will get to that. Trust me, we will get to that. Without further ado, Lou Anarumo. Shout out to Jimmy Ray. Lou
yeah,
Anarumo taking the
over the
gig as
Colts.
the Colts DC. I think we may have literally talked about that on Friday's pod. Because I think Captain Lou was done dirty in Cincinnati. I don't think he had the pieces to be successful. You can't deny that the defense was terrible, and it's the reason they missed the playoffs. But that he did not have a full chest of supplies there. He did not. That was not letting a cook pick his ingredients, in my opinion. They spend all their money on the offense, and they're going to spend even more if they're going to try to fight scrap and claw to keep T Higgins. But
Yeah.
the team needs way too much. Um, and Joe, I'll address Joe's comment here. We got first of all, we got Mike McCarthy was the right fit. They blew it. I disagree. I don't think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I think he was the coach of a Hall of Fame quarterback, and that's why he has a ring. I don't think he's a good coach, and I think that's why he has all the resume and all the buzz. Like Pro Football Demon was on Twitter was talking about how he wanted him to come coach the Jets, and I said, not impressive. Don't care about the resume. He's like, oh, he's winning 12 games a year with Dallas, and he has a Super Bowl, and I'm like, no, yeah, he coached Aaron Rodgers when he was in his prime. That's
Yeah,
it.
but the Cowboys have had undeniably great regular seasons under him.
But there's something to be said, bro. Like zero NFC championship games. They have the longest NFC championship drought in the NFC. There's no team who has gone longer. That proud franchise. They haven't made an NFC championship since I was born.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm not exactly 22, So, whatever.
Yeah, you're
Regardless.
borderline. You're close.
I digress.
Closer than I am.
How you doing? You know who that guy is, Adrian? You ever see that guy's videos? How you doing?
I do not know.
They're pretty funny. He's a Bills fan. I don't know what his name is, but he's very funny.
I'll have to check it out.
Guessing that's who Joe's quoting here. By the way, shout out to Joe Crack. Really leading the comment section today. We're missing Armand Mosin. Also, there's 463 of you on the Twitter stream, and I'm not seeing any comments from you. So please hop in. Please talk some smack. Please tell me and Adrian who has nicer hair. It's gonna be a toss up, but we'll put a poll up.
I feel like you'll take the crown then.
It's gonna be close. I think we both have we're having good hair days. Without further ado, we got games to talk about, man. And the divisional round, from a high-minded conceptual standpoint, we learned one thing that was abundantly true across the 4 games. Each team, Adrian, do you know what each team that won had in common?
I mean, elite quarterbacks.
I like that. I'm cool with that.
Take that out. Yeah, take that out.
We did debate whether or not you were on the pod when we debated. I tried to put Jaden Daniels in tier 1, and Jimmy thought it was too soon.
No, well, I mean, if it was,
not anymore.
Can't argue it after this game. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's not a bad answer. But that wasn't the correct answer. Because I don't know if I would say Jalen Hurts is elite anymore. I kind of thought he might have been, but I haven't really seen the elite.
You're right.
To be fair, the winning teams in every single divisional round matchup, I believe, not only won the turnover battle, but I don't think any of the teams that won had a turnover.
Wow. That's if that's true, that is a ridiculous stat.
I'm pretty sure that's the case, and I'm also pretty sure that each team that won, Adrian, outgained. Were outgained by their opponents.
That is correct. I remember hearing that actually, that every winner got outgained.
So fun facts galore here on this podcast, and we'll break it down more specifically game by game, and we'll start in chronological order. Let's start with the absolute most atrocious game that maybe any of us have ever laid our eyes upon, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. The Kansas City Chiefs won 23-14 at Arrowhead, and they punched their ticket to their seventh straight AFC championship.
Absurd.
Yeah, the nausea is palpable. There aren't enough Tums.
I am terrified.
Find that drop. We tried to do that the other day. But there's not enough Tums in the world for the nausea that the Chiefs give me personally. And the Texans, I'll give them credit. I'll give credit where it's due. I think they put up more of a fight than I thought they would, given how tumultuous their season has been and how dog water they looked, and like how bad they got beat by Houston, or how bad they got beat by Kansas City on Christmas, or maybe it was the week of Christmas. So I will never ever my eyeball, it's cinched into my eyeballs how unfun those games were to watch. And Houston did everything they could. Adrian, why don't you talk to the people about your perception of the officiating? Because I can't. I'll be biased if I do it. So why don't you talk to me about the officiating in that game?
All right. So I actually tried to cut some clips of these calls just so we could kind of talk about them and watch them live. I couldn't get them with the sound, and I thought that would look weird. So, expose the bathrobe. That's where we went. So let's talk about it. There's two calls to talk about here. The first is in the first quarter, there was a roughing the passer. Now this one is less egregious, right? So it's on third. It is less egregious of a call, but it's more impactful because it was a third down, and it continued the drive. So Mahomes gets hit kind of this area, sort of like neck, chest. You see his head knocked back a little bit, and that's why they called it. The indication that what the ref would see, because you can slow it down and look at it from a million angles. The refs are looking at it live, and they see the head move back a little bit. They call that roughing the passer.
Yeah, you can understand why they would have made that call with
Less
the way
annoyed
his
about
head
that.
whipped a little bit, but it was still just a bad call.
Yeah, look, yeah, I agree with you, but I can understand where mistakes get made, and like to be fair, right? And this before I go to the one that was ridiculous. Andy Reid challenged a catch on Dalton Schultz. It did not look like a catch, and then that got through after a challenge. So like the mistakes went both ways sometimes. I just think that like the second roughing the passer, right? So third quarter, Mahomes goes down for a slide. Two Texans come in, they barely touch him. They collide on the slide. The two Texans collide. And they call roughing the passer. And it was just like, even Troy Aikman was, he was on TV just blasting the refereeing.
Yeah, it was terrible,
at that
man.
point. Yeah, that was rough. What I'm gonna say though is I don't think those two calls were the reason that the Chiefs won. I understand. I understand at some point you can't help but be sick of hearing this, but that's the thing, right? Is that like we see it. These calls happen in every game. Like every game, these calls happen where people get it wrong. But as soon as it happens to the Chief, it's a media frenzy because everyone wants to kind of point at that. And the truth is, it's because we're sick of seeing the Chiefs succeed. Now, what does come of it, and it happened in this game, is where Mahomes tried to like flop out of bounds to kind of draw a penalty because he knows that he can get away with that stuff, and there's a chance they're going to call it. So he's using that to his advantage. It's not really the Chiefs' fault, but at this point, it's kind of just like it's egregious, and we're sick of it happening. If the Chiefs were 4-12 or 4-13, sorry, we wouldn't care.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like I want to get on Mahomes so badly about that flop. It was so pathetic.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It was one of the most pathetic flops I've ever seen. However, my caveat: there's gamesmanship to flopping. There is no penalty for flopping in the NFL. There is one in the NBA now. They've instituted it recently, but there is no penalty for flopping apart from looking like I guess politically correct, I'll say looking like a wimp. Yeah. However, once again, my king, Joshua Patrick Allen, has quite the flopping highlight tape.
Is his middle name Patrick?
Yeah, his middle name is Patrick. Look it up. Look up Josh Allen flopping highlights, and it's pretty entertaining. I can't even lie. He's got some good ones, and I think it's because it's not a stupid play. If a guy puts their hands on you, embellish the contact, make it look worse than it was, and maybe you'll get 15 yards. It's kind of until they put I think they should institute a penalty for flopping, but until they do, flop away.
Yeah. But like, I mean, how many times? No, this is not flopping, but how many times is the play a pass interference? Like where the wide receiver plays for the pass interference. It happens all the time.
It does,
It's
absolutely.
and it gets called like it gets brought up less because it's also a little less egregious because they're still going for it, but they feel contact and they definitely go down.
For
You
sure.
know, it happens. I think what I guess to caveat this and we'll bring back to the game. Yeah, it sucks. Yes, it put points on the board, and that absolutely sucks. But I think the whole Mahomes gets treated special. It is a thing, but it is also much more visible than what it appears to be. Like I feel like maybe the difference is 5% as opposed to the difference that is kind of portrayed on social media of like he gets everything.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I don't think it's I don't think it's like you can't breathe on the guy type thing. And I think, it is true of superstars, and especially I think players like Mahomes who have been to a Super Bowl, who have won Super Bowls, like there's kind of a different it's kind of a different barometer that you use. And it also play style really measures into it quite a bit. Players like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, especially when they leave the pocket, they are runners and they are treated as runners. Patrick Mahomes, even when he's running, kind of has this weird stiffness, this weird quarterback stiffness that I think makes him look like a quarterback. So, that unnecessary roughness hit where they collided and they touched him, he slid late. He made the
Yeah.
choice to slide very late, and he slid, so he gave himself up and he was contacted, but those players were committing already and they hit each other. So, I'm not gonna
Just
harp on
make it
it.
reviewable. I think that's my thing. Just make
I
it
couldn't
reviewable.
agree more, especially face masks. You got to make face masks reviewable, because in that Bills game, there was a play where the Bills got somebody on the shoulder and they threw 15, or that might have even been the Ravens who did that. I don't remember, but I remember they got a face mask call very wrong. And so
Mm.
things like that, this just needs to be reviewable. You're exactly right. And that's going to be there's going to be a huge swell. And I hope the refs don't do the whole ref union thing that they did when pass interference was reviewable, and just sweep it under the rug
Yeah.
and just sort of collectively say, we might have made the call wrong, but we're not going to fix it. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. Sticking to the game, I got to watch my special sweet prince Nico Collins play football one more time this year, which always just makes me so happy. He's just so great at football. I can't wait to see what he accomplishes in his career. And I think CJ Stroud, the pixie dust that he got. So if you recall the game prior in the wild card, he was terrible until the ball was snapped way over his head and he had to sprint 20 yards backwards and find an open receiver down the field, and then he kind of was dialed in from the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he started this game pretty dialed in. And then somewhere it wore off. Like it's like a turbo mode in 2K or like Madden, where you have like a boost for like 4 total quarters. His was like the second quarter through of the last game through the second quarter of this game, and then it just was gone. His boost meter ran out.
Yeah. I also I feel like a good part of this, and not to break it down to one problem, but a good part of this is the Texans defensive line. He was just getting
Terrible.
pummeled. Take the
Sucked.
sacks at 8 sacks, right? Take that out of it for a second. When they needed it the most, Karlaftis got 3 sacks in the fourth. Oh no, I think he got 2 in the fourth quarter, 1 in the third quarter. Like the back half of the game, half the time he was lined up against Dalton Schultz. Like there was just mismatch.
What the
City
hell? What the
and
hell?
there was one part where, and they called it out on the broadcast, where the interior line just left Justin Reed. Like instead of picking the center, picking him up, he turned to the side and picked the other guy
I
up, and
saw
Justin
that.
Reed was straight down the middle.
And Aikman said that you got to pinch the gaps with
Yeah.
and nobody pinched the gap. That gap was gapped.
And that was happening all game. Like, I mean, it was good he called it out on that. But if you watch, like, because I actually went back, it's easy to go back and watch the tape when you've only got 4 games to watch. So I went back and watched some of this stuff and watched the coaches tape. And like there was just holes all the time. And they had a free rusher all the time. It was actually crazy how well Stroud did to be like he got sacked 8 times, and some of that's on him, but how well he did considering that offensive line that game. I don't think it was kind of talked about enough.
Yeah, and I'm starting to like really question Bobby Slowick. I know he's, again, talk about a chef who's operating without their key ingredients, but I'm starting to really
Yeah.
question his intelligence as a play caller, because sometimes, man, look, if you don't have a quick answer baked in when your quarterback's getting pressure like that, the amount of times that Stroud just 8 sacks. Oh my God. I said 8 sacks to the number 8, but I'm saying he ate them like
Yeah.
a sandwich.
ATE.
He was eating sacks left and right. And I'm just like, and part of it is just like at a certain point in time, and Aikman said it too, like, bro, at a certain point in time, you just have to throw the ball. Like, and it happens all the time in games. And I'm just like, I was watching the national championship last night, Notre Dame, and it happened with Riley Leonard sometimes where I'm just like, bro, that's a gotta have it play.
Mhm.
It's so, yeah, maybe you throw it, maybe you throw a pick, but if you don't throw it, you're gonna get sacked, and then that's just as bad. Like, I don't get it. I'm look, I'm not in the situation. I know it's like literally milliseconds between getting absolutely pummeled and whatnot, but man, if you're out there in that field and you don't have a quick answer for pressure, or you don't have, if you're trying to escape and somebody who you think you can evade gets you, then that's one thing. But not throwing the ball away, or not, not having a baked in answer to the blitz, that's the kind of stuff that I just like. I've become spoiled watching Josh Allen because he doesn't get sacked, and he's got escapability for sure, but he also knows his hot route. He knows his outlet. And what do they say, Adrian? Throw at the blitz. It's a great strategy. It's a great strategy.
The great ones always want the blitz. They really do.
Yeah.
And I talked about it with Josh Allen. I said that Marino was like that. Aaron Rodgers was like that. I was like, they want the blitz because they know where their open man is and just get it out quick.
Replace the guy with the ball is another saying. There's a lot of fun sayings that I've learned through my years of like you say, grinding the tape. Like, those are the ways to do it. You gotta throw at the blitz, replace the guy with the ball.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, sorry, go.
No, I was just gonna say, you see the lane. Usually, if your guys are hot, if what do they alert it, or they have like words that say like somebody's coming. Have your answer. Like
100%.
It's so simple. And sorry, go ahead. Say what you were gonna say.
No. Mine was gonna go off this. So finish your point, and then
no, it's finished.
Yeah. So I was gonna say then I just wanted a couple of things about this game. It's frustrating. Look, I don't want to be Chiefs hater, but the truth is I am. Like, I want to pretend not to be, but the truth is I'm so sick of seeing them.
Yeah, I hate them.
And how's Kelsey like averaging 40 yards a game up until now? 717 and a touchdown.
What a stud! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Turns it on.
And you know what, Adrian? Oh my God! Same. I don't want to be a hater. I am a hater. Objectively, they're the new Patriots. They have the Patriots. The Patriots ruined my childhood and my teen years. The Chiefs are ruining my 20s. Look, man. That play when Mahomes was in the red zone and he evaded and he dove and he threw the ball and he threw it right to a wide open Kelsey just standing there. Man, are they just good at football?
They really are.
Are they just good at football? And Mahomes, his stats aren't great, but his performance is great. He is greatness personified. He does it again. He puts on another show. Credit where it's due. Not a fan of his, but gotta be impressed with what you saw from Mahomes and Kelsey. Better than we've seen all season.
100%. And that's, I mean, look, at this point, I don't think anyone can be surprised. We've all forgone the ability to be surprised. We all said the same thing. Said the same thing last season. At this point, they've got to be taken seriously. Now, I truly hope, and without going to next week, I truly hope that the Bills are the ones to knock them off. If there was a team I trust in the playoffs, they're the ones. But we'll get to that on Friday's show. So yeah, look, it was to an extent, it was a painful game to watch. A couple other things just to call out: the missed kicks from Fairbairn, the opening drive,
Crucial.
where the special teams just like they would give up this big return, knock the ball out, run off to celebrate. It gets recovered. Chris Boyd's like shoving the special teams coach. It felt like you knew what was coming. Like, it was like the whole way through. What I will say is the whole time I never really felt like the Texans were in this, even when they were down by 3 points.
Same. Unfortunately, I hoped. I had my fingers crossed, but it did. I agree. It did kind of feel that way. Let's really quick, just because we're actually doing pretty good for time, but we do have 3 more games to get to. Whenever we transition from game to game, let's do a moratorium. Let's just touch on, look, the Texan season is over now. Texans fans, this is a safe space if you need to comment and talk about how you feel. This is therapy, so I'm I'm in recovery from being a Texans fan, and I was not really a fan. They were my offseason darling pick last year, and it was a really good pick. I sniped it. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the graphic. But
you saw my man move straight
but
away.
but I have to. Yeah, I did see it. But I have to give credit where it's due. They fought hard. They fought harder than I thought they would with their injuries, and they made the playoffs. And if they get healthy, Tank Dell, he's got a long road ahead of him. I don't know if he'll be ready for next year. Diggs was on a 1-year contract. So I don't really know what it's going to look like in Houston next year. They got to replace some offensive linemen. They got to get better on the lines, both trenches really. I mean, the D line actually was pretty good. Were great at pass rushing, but they have to make some serious changes this offseason. And I think DeMeco Ryans has to tighten the ship, for lack of a better term. Like you said, shoving your special teams coach is that's not the way to do it.
Though, and I will say this, right, is that they want a playoff game. They're
Definitely
going through now what the
2 years in a row.
But this is what the Commanders will face next year. Is you come out of nowhere, rookie quarterback, you do amazing. It's like, oh, you're 5 years ahead of your rebuild. Now we're expecting year 6 worth when it's really year 2. So the Stephon Diggs is a bit painful because he'll likely, or I think he'll be moved on after this season. Who knows?
Dallas.
But they're still well ahead of where they were 2 years ago, and they won a playoff game. Like they won a playoff. Like how many people win a playoff game in these series? There'd be what? I mean, I can't work out the exact figure, but maybe 8 teams that will win playoff games.
Yeah, no, you got to give credit where it's due, man, and back-to-back years, and I like the pieces there. I'm excited to see. I hope Stroud takes the offseason a little more seriously this year.
Very much so.
Less podcasts, less top 5 quarterback lists that don't include Josh Allen. Dummy. Clearly doesn't know ball. But hopefully he just takes.
I am so angry.
Absolutely. Hopefully he just takes the offseason a little bit more seriously. And same with DeMeco, honestly. I'd like to see DeMeco kind of come back with a new sense of leadership. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But either way, they've seen worse days. So any year you win a playoff game, you can't really be too down on it. So without further ado, game number 2, and we really should have Anthony Weiner here for his therapy, because the real therapy is a lot more expensive than coming on to legit football. But the Washington Commanders, in shocking, really just league altering stuff, future of the NFL altering stuff. Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback, my offseason darling team. Obviously, I'll continue to victory lap that. I'll take my bows every chance I get.
I'll be honest.
Every chance I get. I know I have so much pressure on next year's pick because there's an ethos now. They take down the Lions 45-31. The number 1 seed, first round bye, Detroit Lions. And really, it's one of those things where we're reminded every year that the NFL is a single elimination tournament, and teams come out flat or make a couple big mistakes, and teams that are objectively not as good on paper beat teams that are objectively better on paper because of moments and players and plays. And really it starts and ends with Jaden Daniels just being one of the most special players on the field. And I've heard a lot of awesome discussion about his demeanor. He's got ice water in his veins. And it's almost, we talked about how, I believe you and I talked about how sometimes we don't want that. Like we want the fire, we want the passion, but Jaden Daniels is unflappable in the best way. Yeah. He does not engage when there's pushing and shoving, when there's yelling, when there's activity. He's not getting involved, and not in a laissez-faire, I got to keep my hands clean kind of way. In like do whatever you want around me. I'm not paying attention. I'm locked in. I'm trying to win a football game, and doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Just really just like truly seemingly one of the most wise beyond his years football players maybe of all time.
Yeah. He was awesome. I mean, he was so awesome. And you know what, your what's the word? Your method or your potion for picking the offseason darling second pick defensive coach.
You know it. You know
it has worked well.
You know the formula. Say
The
again.
Browns next year? I think the Browns are second pick next year, aren't they?
I'm gonna have to refine it because I can't. I don't know if in good faith I can pick them. I think they'll ruin my streak.
Understandable. I will just say, like, Jaden Daniels, and actually, we just talked about CJ Stroud and kind of what his offseason looked like. I just don't foresee Jaden Daniels being on podcasts. He was so awesome.
Nope.
His post games are awesome.
Yep.
And everything he said was the team. Like,
Yep.
I very rarely heard him talk about himself unless he was just sort of breaking down, something that was objectively true to the eye. He talked about how the Lions rushed him. I can't remember the number, but they blitzed him over and over, and he just did not care. He was so comfortable with it. A couple times he'd run and pick up 2-3 yards out to the side. A couple times he'd pass and take big plays, but they just blitzed him all day, and he did not care. And they
Nope.
talked about it in the post game, and he was like, "Yeah, they blitzed me, and so I had my outlet routes. They played man. I had my man beaters." He just talked objectively, and I freaking love him, man. He is awesome.
He's just hard not to like, and it's just hard not to just kind of be enamored with what the Commanders have going on and talk about being ahead of your rebuild, right? And
God.
man, I have a big point I want to make on that, but I really want to save it for when I get to Bills Ravens. We'll talk a little bit about, I guess, team building philosophies and the course of your development as a team or a player. It'll be a fun discussion to have, but in the meantime, Adrian, pour one out for Detroit.
Yeah. And you know what? If I can interrupt you, before we go on, I've got a little clip from Dan Campbell because I feel like that'll set the tone for us to talk about the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got that?
Let it rip.
No, it just hurts to lose, man. And I don't care if you're the 7 seed, 6 seed, 5 seed, 1 seed, because I've lost at all of them damn near, and it stings and it hurts. So, it hurts.
That's just, it's beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, and there's really nothing quite as gut wrenching as losing in the NFL playoffs. And again, I said it earlier, the single elimination format lends itself to just these kinds of, you come out, you get punched in the mouth. There's formulas for upsets, man. And you know what? You want to talk about the formula for an upset? You be aggressive, man. You go be Doug Peterson and the Eagles against the Patriots, and you do trick plays, and you go for 2, and you do surprise on sides. Well, you can't do that anymore, but stuff like that, that is how you do it. And the Commanders at every turn, there's this plus that equals this. Underdog plus aggressiveness equals chance at an upset.
Yep. And this game was like exactly that. And I think that's what it was, it was just like this offensive showdown. And every time the Lions punched them in the mouth, and they did punch them in the mouth a lot, like it's just the Commanders came back every time, did not care, not phased, come back, go down the field, score, come back, go down the field, score. And then the difference in this game, and it's been talked about to no end already, is the mistakes.
Yeah.
Was it
5?
I think it was 5, but the last one you almost don't count. It was like the last kind of desperation throw. But there's a pick six. There's Goff mistakes that he doesn't normally make. And even there was one throw where he missed Williams by like 6 inches, and he's hitting that every other time. It's just, you get in this, the lights go the brightest, and he makes mistakes. One of his interceptions was just a straight overthrow. It was just a bad move.
And there's something to be said, Adrian. We do have to address the psychological component of sports, right? The playoffs are different from the regular season. Inherently, they are different, and the science behind it and the psychology behind it is you should treat it as similarly as you can, because that's what got you there. But how, if you make a mistake, if you do wrong, you're gone. How do you compartmentalize that? But even just that much thought, you're already doing too much, and it's going to change. It's going to throw you off. And we see it in all sports, in the NBA. I'm a huge New York Knicks fan. They said Julius Randle wasn't a playoff performer. People want to talk all the time about another quarterback who we'll be talking about in a little bit that just people say is not a playoff performer. And it's like, I don't know, because it's kind of a little bit, it's kind of lazy analysis, because you're just looking at they do bad in the playoffs, but it's like, sometimes it kind of has I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't think you can deny the impact that the playoff pressure puts on people. I think it's psychological. I think the great ones find a way to either channel it or quiet it down.
Yeah. Yeah, here. And I totally agree, and we will talk about that very shortly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is kind of that's the sort of the louder screams now are that Goff can't get you. They can't get you to the end. I don't know if that was the case. I just, you know what I think as well is like they still put up 31 points in a playoff game. You know, if they had a couple more defensive pieces to hold on to some differences, who knows where this turns to. Can we just put a shout out though to Jameer Gibbs? He was amazing in this game.
Yeah,
And
incredible.
I really do feel like I know they extended Montgomery. I don't know if what his contract situation is, but if I'm the Lions, man, he has shown he can be an every down back. Get Montgomery,
Absolutely.
get what you can while Montgomery's stock is high. There are plenty of like third and two bruisers you can go out there and get for cheap.
Yeah, I could not agree more, bro. Yeah, Gibbs is one of the best in the league. Like he's a top 5 back, maybe top 3. He's just special, and maybe top 1. I don't know. The sky's the limit.
I would say, look, Barkley, and we'll talk about Barkley in a second, but otherwise, he was just, I mean, 9 carries, 96 yards in the first half. I can't remember his totals, but it was over 200 yards total from scrimmage. 2 touchdowns. Every time he got the ball, it felt like he was just going to like break into the secondary. It was just like really cool to see that guy. He's been Sonic and Knuckles the whole season, and that's been the kind of talking points. And when Knuckles or Sonic, I don't know which one's which, when one was knocked out, he just showed like this guy's a bell cow, man. You should get him in every play, on every down. He is such a threat.
Gibbs is Sonic because speed. Knuckles is power. Yeah, I gotta give credit where it's due though, bro. Yeah, he's great and he's been great and he cost me a lot of money. He sent me home in a lot of fantasy championships. I'm gonna make sure I have him on a couple teams next year. I screwed up. But Adrian, Lions fans, don't hang your head. I was one of the people who said you can win with Goff, but you won't win because of. I still question. I'm leaning more towards that you can win because of him. I do think he's a great player. I think he had a bad game. Flush the tape. Last year he had you guys on the doorstep of the Super Bowl. Flush the tape. It's going to be a long off season. It's a little harder to flush the tape when it's a playoff game, but lick your wounds. Trust me. Buffalo got punched in the mouth by Cincinnati a couple years ago. Not showing up in a playoff game. Yeah, you have. You know the feeling. It is the worst feeling. I would rather fight tooth and nail and just not have it not be enough than just not give your best stuff. So apologies to Lions fans and to the Lions organization. Any year could be the year with the regime that you have. So hang 10. Stay positive.
If we can, if just as we wrap this up, I just want to play a very quick clip, and this is a bit of a juxtaposition because the Commanders are obviously flying high. Let's just quickly jump in their locker room and see Dan Quinn.
From the first day we got together, it's on our wall. Anybody, anywhere, anybody. All right, good luck, you guys. Let's find out where it is tomorrow. Take our show back on the road. Yes, sir.
Love it.
What a clip. What an awesome dude. What a great head coaching hire. And really, I think it starts and ends with the quarterback. So congrats to Commanders fans. Good luck. It's going to be a fun NFC Championship game. Playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who were the 2 seed, who now get to host the NFC Championship game, taking down the LA Rams, who had the boost of playing for the city and playing for those who've been battling the wildfires. They had that natural disaster spike, and it was pretty awesome to watch LA fight, and they fought hard in every game this playoffs and to get to the playoffs, and wasn't enough in this game, and I think most football fans probably would say that given the just unbelievable prowess of Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and Philadelphia's offensive line, that team is a juggernaut.
I'm gonna say, I still don't think the Eagles are as good as they seem.
Okay, you know what?
Hold on.
You know what? Cook.
Let me talk because I think Barkley, right? So this is my thing on Barkley, and this game reminded me of this. Barkley is awesome. Barkley is a fantastic running back, but it is not enough to be that good. You don't have the season he's had because he's that good. He's that good. Plus, he's got an offensive line that is that good. If you saw the gaps You did because you were watching the gaps that they opened and the way that the teams have to defend them. They have to defend the pass. They have to defend Jalen Hurts' rush. So they need to spine him at all times, following him around. So like one of the kind of smaller details when Hurts hands off to Barkley, he runs the opposite way because someone has to follow him just in case he's still got the ball. So
Yeah.
Barkley is awesome, but he's also in the perfect scheme with the right people around him and the holes in that offensive line, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm saying it. I'm not saying he's not special. It's been an amazing season because of all these things together. But Hurts has not been good. AJ Brown has disappeared. Like they've got a great defense, but their secondary. That at one point at the end of this game, I thought the Rams had this, and I don't know if you were the same.
Me too. No, I did.
But they had one injury and they just picked on that side of that side of the field. And I think I'm not saying they're a bad team, but I don't trust Jalen Hurts to be the special guy he was when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I trust Barkley to be that guy.
Yeah.
I absolutely trust Saquon Barkley to be that guy, but I just
Yeah.
don't know if and John, shout out to John. I'm gonna try this Heffelfinger. We're all on board here.
We will get to that, John. And hello to Armand. Happy to see you. Hello to my father, PK Martini. Detroit will be strong. Agreed. My dad he was part of the Bills fandom who went to 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. So he knows knows a thing or two about pain. Adrian, let me say, go ahead. Did you have a little more?
Sorry. I was gonna say I digress here, but I think the Eagles. We talk about them being the most complete team. I've said those words. I just don't know if I feel that way anymore.
I don't think you should digress because I think that digressing comes with a level of resignation. I don't think you should digress.
I'm saying I digress to the comments, as in I turned away from my argument, bringing it back. I don't think the Eagles are that good.
I see. Okay, word. Because I was gonna say, to me, bro, I wanted to let you cook there because I think you're cooking. I think you have some truth. I think you have some truth bombs that you're dropping, in a sense of like, look, man, you do one thing not just well, extremely well. They run the football as well as any team has this decade, maybe in the last couple decades. They're Saquon Barkley with 2,000 yards and really having a realistic chance of being the single season rushing leader and just not taking it due to health and safety. Yeah, I think that you're dialed in because look, they run the ball that well that it masks a lot of their other issues. They don't have a quarterback who has the ice water in his veins the way that the other quarterbacks who are still standing have. They don't have a defense that is capable of holding up the way that we saw against LA when they had injuries and their defense is great. Their D-line is great. One of the best D-lines in the playoffs. But when you're playing against quarterbacks who get the ball out the way they're supposed to, or replace the blitz with the ball, you're not going to be able to pick them apart the way that they've been picking apart. You're not. Like, Hurts isn't as accurate as other quarterbacks. So I actually don't think you're crazy far off. And we saw them fall victim to the Commanders' magic and the pixie dust just a couple weeks ago.
Let's hope it happens again.
I mean, it would be insane. A rookie quarterback in the Super Bowl. Oh my God, this preview show is going to be next level. But it's going to be awesome. As far as the Rams go, Stafford, I did think he had one more rabbit in his hat. He does not, it seems. Him and Puka's chemistry is one of the most beautiful things. And it was on display late. I felt like they got away from Puka a little too much early. They entirely got away from Cooper Kupp. I want to know if Cooper Kupp stole Matthew Stafford's parking spot or his wife, because the lack of Cooper Kupp utilization in recent weeks for the Rams is just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Agreed.
So, we'll say sayonara to the Rams and possibly sayonara to Stafford, an all-time great, surely a Hall of Famer. One of the most fun quarterbacks to watch, and really that special season when he went and got the ring will always be something that Rams fans and fans of Stafford will always remember. And he's got that dog in him, but wasn't enough this year.
It really felt. I'll just before I wrap up, I'll talk about that 2-minute drill at the end, which was like, it looked like they had that.
So
It
looked like
looked
it.
like they were perfect. Even little details like so there was so Nicole went for 6 yards or so straight out of bounds. No fancy trying to get around.
Oh
Not
yeah,
to get on
love
Mark
that.
Andrews for a second, but ball slippery, get out of bounds.
Yeah.
Cooper Cup catches the ball and body slides out of bounds, stops the clock. And then up until there, they were just 7 yards, 5 yards, just doing it exactly the way
Methodical.
it should have happened.
Yep.
And I've got a little clip to play of Sean McVay after this. Think of where I am right now when he says what he says. But then there's a false start. Then they let Jalen Carter through. That's a mistake by the center. And then he throws a really poor, uncatchable ball, 4th down, game's over. So it was kind of up, bang. And in my head, they were going to win that game. And I'm going to play a quick clip from Sean McVay where I think he thinks the same.
Man, I'm damn proud to be associated with this football team. I didn't see it going any other way than us winning that game 29-28. And, I think this game in a lot of ways epitomized the resilience, the grit, the ability to overcome adversity. Just had a couple things that we couldn't overcome. And, there'll be some things that we can learn from. But, this is the time for gratitude, for appreciation. I love this group. I love this coaching staff. I love these players. And I also understand and appreciate how difficult it is to be in positions like this. Where you've got the game, in hand. I felt like we had total control towards the latter part of that game.
Yeah.
Feel for the guy.
Really, really exactly what you just said, Adrian. And I think a lot of people, Rams fans especially, were feeling similarly. So sayonara to the Rams. Congrats to Philly. Can't wait to talk about that matchup. Philly and Washington next week. The coup de grace, the piece de resistance, the Buffalo Bills, my Buffalo Bills. You can believe I had 14 people in my house on Sunday. I had my lucky jersey on, and I had maybe the most emotional roller coaster experience watching that game that I've had watching a game probably since 13 seconds in terms of extremeness, but in terms of where I had where I was happy with the outcome, probably ever. That was probably the most intense viewing experience for me as a fan that ended positively that I've ever experienced. So there's a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So I will just say,
Wax poetic. Take the reins here.
I will just say that this game was everything I expected it to be in the exact opposite way that I expected it to be. I expected it to be haymaker, punch, counter punch. Both teams have a shot. I honestly thought we would be chasing their heels. The fact that Buffalo was front running in this game was very shocking to me, especially given the way that the game started with a quick and easy touchdown drive for Baltimore. The biggest play of the game to me is the Damar Hamlin strip sack of Lamar Jackson, where Von Miller picked it up and took it 60 or 70 yards, put Buffalo right in position to score a go-ahead touchdown early in the game and kind of really swing the tide, really, because Lamar threw a pick on the drive before, but Buffalo couldn't capitalize. And then the field position flipped and Baltimore looked like they were going in to score. So really the turnovers from Lamar, there were 2 from Lamar and a huge critical Mark Andrews fumble late, but those were the difference in the game. The Bills won the turnover battle 3-0, and the Ravens were still an eyelash away from tying the game with 1:33 left. Bigger picture stuff, Adrian. 1:33 with 2 timeouts for Josh Allen is an eternity, and I think Buffalo would have won even if Andrews caught that pass. I think Buffalo making the decision to kick the field goal at the goal line was the correct and responsible one, even though it was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to stomach, because you punch it in there and you punch your ticket to Kansas City.
Yeah. Done.
And they weren't able to, and they had the ball at the 2-yard line on 3rd down, and they didn't push. And I was kind of,
Yeah, look, they tried to get, though, to be fair, they had 3 attempts to get 2 yards, if I remember correctly, and they couldn't get it in. Josh Allen got stuffed at the line, and I think they made the right move.
I think they got to the 10. It was first and goal at the 10. They got to maybe the 6 or 7 on the second play, and then Josh ran it, and it looked like he was going to take it right in, and somebody got a shoestring, and he fell, and that was when it was 3rd and 2 at that point, and then they tried something else to get in, punch it in. Maybe it was a Josh Allen QB draw, which I just hated the shotgun play there. I didn't like that play call, and then Josh tried to lateral out of it. I don't know if you saw that.
I don't remember.
God,
But,
Adrian, Josh Allen and lateraling in big games in the playoffs and big moments. Like the guy just needs he just needs to have his head checked. There's no other way to. I love him. He's my hero. But he was like, go watch the play again. His last running attempt on the goal line. He tried to pitch it, but then a Ravens player grabbed his arm and he didn't try to pitch it, and it would have been a disaster if he did. But Cook was right behind him and probably could have walked into the end zone if he could have pulled it off. But geez, not worth the risk there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So what I will say about this game and about Josh Allen particularly is when the Ravens came out and scored so easily, I'm with you because I am through you. I am a pseudo Bills fan now, but with my
Respect.
Packers out, right? And I want the Chiefs gone. So everything is pointing towards I want the Bills to have their first Super Bowl.
Love it.
When the Ravens came out and scored, I was nervous.
Yeah.
But then after that, like for the ensuing drive, I was like, for the rest of the game, even on that last drive, I'm going to be honest with you, to me, the Bills were always winning. Like I never felt like that game was out of hand.
And I appreciate you saying that because I have the fan goggles, I have the emotions.
Of course.
And I thought the same thing when we scored the first time to go up against Kansas City in 13 seconds, and then Tyreek Hill scored and took the lead. And then the second time when there was 13 seconds and they scored, I thought that too. So I kind of have a little PTSD as well.
Of course.
The nerves were just on another planet for that game. And Adrian, after the game was over, I had just maybe the most honest and sincere and authentic grown man cry that I've had in a long time. I sat there and let them stream because I care so much and I want it so bad, man. And the city needs it, man. Like, trust me, my city would explode with a championship. And I don't think there are fans who are more deserving. I'm starting to think that there aren't players who are more deserving than this bunch. The love I have for Josh and Deion Dawkins and Khalil Shakir and Baby Cook and all those guys. You've been around for the majority of this this rise, and you know like what and the adversity, you know, and the doubt that was cast on this team in the offseason, you know, and got to give credit where it's due. You want to talk about a juggernaut on the other conference that isn't around anymore. The Ravens are an incredible team, and they will always give me nightmares. Not even before they had Derrick Henry. I did not like playing Baltimore because of how amazing I think Lamar Jackson.
we heard your phone ding there.
I got the text on the laptop. How amazing I think Lamar Jackson is, and he showed it, right? And he's probably going to be the MVP, which I have my own issues with, but he's an incredible player, and him getting them back in the game despite his kind of, you know, despite his mishaps, right? He kind of has this reputation as just not being a playoff performer. I don't want to dogpile, and Mark Andrews as well. I hope you guys all know I donated $17 to Mark Andrews charity, 17 for Josh Allen, and everybody should, because he's probably not having the best week. And he probably is going to beat himself up, but one man's tears are another man's glory in sports.
Correct. And that's the thing is when they to bring this back to when you said you weren't sure about the field goal, I think it made sense. It's like at the very worst they can tie it up with the field and the conditions the way they were and your defense playing the way it was. It was the right move, and granted they got all the way down far too easily. Just FYI, like that last drive was way too easy.
Insane.
But that's what you're banking on. You're banking on a mistake in the conditions, and it happened obviously at the worst moment. And poor Mark Andrews, I hope that guy's okay, because you know we've all made mistakes in our life and looked back and hated those mistakes and cringed and regretted. That guy's going to be thinking about that for the rest of his life, and that's
for sure for the rest of his life. And yeah, your heart's going to go out to him, and he's a wonderful player, and he's a great dude from what I understand. So you know, your heart goes out to him. And you know, watching the camera pan in Detroit on the fans' faces and just knowing what that feels like, and the Mark Andrews thing, the playoffs are just the most, the NFL, there's no sporting event in the world like the NFL playoffs, and the elation and the despair and the double-edged side of the coin, and it's single elimination. This isn't the World Cup where you can have a couple cracks, you can have a couple bites at the apple. This isn't the NBA Finals where you can lose the first two, and then come out and course correct and correct the results. You have a bad day. You have a sniffle. You have a cold. You make a mistake. See you in 8 months for
I'll
week
push
one.
back. I'll push back on the World Cup, but other than that,
Sure,
everything else.
fair, because you're European. So that's what you
and-
have. I can't take it from
And you
you.
just remember that with the World Cup is when you have that bad day, you're not doing it again for 4 years if you're in the team at that
Such a
point.
good
Like,
point.
So
a good
anyway,
last counter, because we're about
to
to wrap up the show. Last counter, and this is what I have to say. I think this is what the driving force behind the Grown Man Tears were. I've said it. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but if you gave me an hour or 2 hours or a year in a lab and said create the perfect Buffalo Bills quarterback, I couldn't have done better than Josh Allen.
I've said that.
First of all, second of all, 2020, Josh Allen's breakout season. I remember when we lost in the AFC Championship game, and I said, it's okay. We have 17. We're going to be back a lot. It is 2025, and this is our first time being back. So never, ever take a moment in life or in sports for granted, because there's always could be a 5-year wait until the next crack, not the next bite at the apple, unless you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, well, let's give the last word to Lamar Jackson.
When it was man threw a BS interception. It was 7-7 at the time. I believe they scored after that. Battle back, fumble, snap, trying to make something happen. Couldn't throw. It was like a RPO play, so I couldn't really throw the ball to likely. The offensive line was down the field, so I was trying to make something happen. Tried to squeeze the ball, it slipped out my hand. Von Miller picked it up, got some yards. I think that led to points for them. So it's a team effort out there. He been busting his behind, he making plays happen out there on that field for us. Came up short. And like I've been saying all season, every time we in situations like this, turnovers play a factor. Penalties play a factor. Tonight, the turnovers we can't have. And that's why we lost the game. Because as you can see, we're moving the ball wonderfully. It's hold on to the ball. I'm sorry for my language. Annoying.
Can't love a guy who you beat more. I mean, he's just the leader, and he takes accountability and so much respect for Lamar Jackson. And it sucks that there's only one MVP award. It sucks that there's only one Lombardi, but fingers crossed that Lombardi is making its way to Western New York this year. But we'll see. It's gonna be a fun preview show. We got a lot to get to on that. And Adrian, anything you want to say to the good people before we wrap this sucker up?
Nah, thanks for joining. I know it's we kind of jumped around from times and this and that, but it's good to see everyone here. And if you're on the Twitter stream, jump over to the YouTube, subscribe to Legit Football. It's a divisional round, right? This is such an awesome week of football. Looking forward to the championship recap. But we hope to have you guys all here through the off season as well. We're going to keep doing it.
You're going to be here for the preview show, right? I need you.
I am.
Fingers crossed. All right. Hey, Joe Crack, PK Martini, Armand, John Heffelfinger, if that's how you say it. Can't thank you all enough. You're all the GOAT. Go Bills. Cannot wait for the preview show. Thank you so much to my partner in crime, Adrian Vito, for being here all the way from Down Under. Ladies and gentlemen, you have listened to the Legit Football Divisional Round Recap Podcast, and we are out.